What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday night. We are doing another AMA Start Sit live stream here on the 4for4 Fantasy Football YouTube channel, as well as the 4for4 Fantasy Football X account. If you are over on X, I just would love to highlight the fact that if you come check out the 4for4 Fantasy Football YouTube page, you will get an absolutely great experience. And I just want you guys to come check us out because we're on the way to 3,000 subscribers. We got a ton of people over here leading their comments here over on YouTube. And honestly, me, Addison, and John Paulson, we're putting out videos each and every day, each and every week to help you guys win your fantasy football matchup. So definitely want you over here in the community, over on the 4for4 Fantasy Football channel, over on YouTube. Now, we get in and we got people already lining up at the door. We got C already in here. He said, "What's up? What's up, C? I know you're about to absolutely light me up with different start sit questions. So I appreciate you being here, C. Hopefully you're doing well. What up, Tricks? Tricks are for kids. Absolutely appreciate you tuning in, being in here as well. We got Jers here in the building. He said, "Caleb, what's up, bro? How we feeling tonight?" We're feeling good. We're feeling absolutely good. I will say this. I have been just a little bit upset with some of my fantasy teams. I don't know if you guys are feeling the exact same way. And then we're heading into Buy-Mageddon right now, where there's just so many buys. There's just a lot of things that I'm upset about personally when it comes to how are my fantasy football teams going to do this week. I have a league where in my RB2 spot, I am rolling out Brashard Smith. I don't feel great about it. Don't feel great at all. But we're going to have to see how that is. So like I said, guys, appreciate everyone for tuning in here tonight. And Jers in here asking the chat how they're feeling. Hopefully the chat is feeling good and we're getting into it. Okay. We got Jers. It says, "Guess what, guys? I won another game. Got new issues I need to address." Okay, Jers, fire those away. Like I said, I think this is the thing. Even if you are 2-5 right now, the part that you have to think to yourself is there's still 7 games before the fantasy football playoffs. Now, if you win all 7, you go, 9-5? That potentially gets you in the playoffs. You probably can only lose 1 game. You can only lose 1, maybe 2 games over this next stretch to even have a shot at the playoffs. I mean, you can't. You can only lose like 1 game. So the odds are very much not in your favor. But if we hit big, especially with the bye, some of these stronger teams are going to be a little bit more demolished when it comes to their studs. You got to take advantage. VR18 says, "Should I drop Spears for Dalton Schultz? Nico might miss the game due to a concussion." So VR, this is my part. Yes. So I'm assuming that Nico Collins isn't playing this week. The part that I do want to kind of talk about when it comes to this whole situation with Nico Collins being out is how does this really change anything for the Houston Texans? Main reason I'm saying that is we've seen CJ Stroud struggle with this offensive line just being absolutely brutal. And so for me, I think Spears definitely has some upside. Depends on your tight end spot, I guess. VR, that's what I would say. If you let me know who your tight end spot is, I can tell you if I have Dalton Schultz above them, and then I think that would be a good move. But usually I like to hold these handcuff running backs, even if it is Tajay Spears on the Tennessee Titans. Just kind of depends on your overall matchup. Jer said, "BTJ was a failure. Trevor Lawrence just hates him. First week I got Evans back. Bam, lost him again before he even gets a pass." Yeah, Jer, let it out, bro. Tez Johnson might be a good play for you this week from the Tampa Bay. But yes, BTJ definitely let me down. We had the Travis Hunter breakout. So for those that were excited for Travis Hunter coming into the season, we finally saw him take that next step, really have that breakout game. And so I would say for me that I do think BTJ, it's just, I don't know. I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if there's only so much early on in the season. I was kind of you know what, him and Trevor Lawrence, their connection just isn't what we want it to be because he had the target share. He had the first look route participation that we'd want. Like I said, he had the target share. It's just the big playability and the peppering of long targets down the field just hasn't been there for BTJ. And I think if we really think about it, that's what he succeeded in with Mac Jones in those last 4 or 5 games of the season. I think they're gotten more involved on some crossers, but I still think BTJ and Travis Hunter are their 2 main weapons. They just need to lean into those 2 guys more than what they've currently been doing. And they also need to get Travis Etienne the ball. I don't care. Those 3 guys need to be the only guys touching the ball the fact that we're still like targeting Parker Washington to a certain extent, like, hey, just check, get out of here, get off the bandwagon. And Trick said, oh, let me check that Twitter. Yeah, dude. Like I said, we're over there live over here on X. We're live on the YouTube. We got 210 people tuning in over on X. So like I said, guys, if you are over on X, definitely come over, check out the YouTube as we continue to grow this new community over here on the 4for4 Fantasy Football YouTube channel, which is a new channel. Kilkenny 73, Killa, appreciate you saying, what up, Caleb? I need one running back, one wide receiver, one flex. And I understand there maybe might not be as many start sit questions this week because you guys are absolutely demolished. And we're going to be what Tricks would say is in the mud. And so we need one running back, one wide receiver, one flex. We got Wan'Dale Robinson, Troy Franklin, Ramondre, and Judkins. So I will tell you this, Kilkenny, you got to go Judkins. Great matchup for Judkins. We saw him absolutely blow up last week versus Miami Dolphins. I understand it wasn't, it was like one of the best matchups you're ever going to see. This week versus New England. New England has been pretty good against the run, but I mean, it's literally the only thing they're going to do with Quinshon Judkins. This isn't a great matchup for Ramondre or Quinshon, but the volume's going to be there. And so, Killa, this is me just talking. I have a team where I am so decimated at running back. I think even after last week, I think I might have to roll out Trevion Henderson as my RB2, but I'd feel way better if it was Ramondre because somehow Mike Vrabel loves to give Mr. Good old Ramondre a ton of touches, no matter if he's going to fumble or whether he's not. So I would go with Ramondre and Quinshon Judkins as my running back and my flex. And so then it becomes down to, do I want to go Wan'Dale Robinson or do I want to go Troy Franklin? If I'm pulling up my rankings, which I just pulled them up, and I'm going to double check with John Paulson, the OG fantasy football ranker as well. We both agree that it has to be Wan'Dale Robinson this week. John Paulson does have him as a top 24 wide receiver going up against Philadelphia. Yes. Is Philadelphia defense good? Yes. But we also saw Jackson Dart in his first start put up 30 fantasy points, which Jackson Dart, honestly, guys, like Jackson Dart is the truth. That's, I think, what we're coming to the conclusion of. Doesn't matter who he's going to play. There's just such a Konami code quarterback upside when it comes to him throwing the ball that you have to look Jackson Dart's way 100%. So Killa, I would go long answer, Wan'Dale Robinson, Ramondre, and Judkins would be the three that I would go with. And Killa said, what up, my brothers and sisters? Let's go. Shout out to the fantasy brethren and sisters. The sisters are few, though. Let's just be clear. The sisters are few, but it is a growing number, and we definitely need more of them, for sure. Jer said, I'm one spot away from being in the playoffs. So many people have the same record. LO, it's bad. Yeah, it's one of those years for fantasy football. So definitely want to put that into consideration as depending on your league. Like we said, like you could have a ton of losses, but if there's not these top tier teams because everyone's beating up on each other, then that's something to consider as well. We got Eric coming in over from X. Shout out to Eric. Love your little graphic emoji here. He said, would you trade Lamb for Jay Williams and Odunze? Eric, I would not. No. As much as I love me some Rome Odunze, I think Rome Odunze is a great buy right now. I think him and Trevor Lawrence, they're going to get it together. This Ben Johnson offense is continuing to take the steps that it needs. CeeDee Lamb for me is a top 3 wide receiver rest of the season. And I feel like Odunze, you're probably dropping down to like wide receiver 9, wide receiver 10 rest of the season. So I just need a plus. Like I need a pretty good plus to trade a guy like a CeeDee Lamb, who honestly has proven to be averaging at least 20 fantasy points when he's playing. So I need something better than Jameson Williams. Now, Eric, if you were to tell me that this is a 14-team league, you absolutely need depth, 14-team league, 3 wide receivers, something like that, 2 flex spots, then maybe we can have a little bit more of a conversation. But assuming, Eric, that this is a 12-team league, with 1 flex, 2 flex, I would still lean with CeeDee Lamb. You're going to want those consistent points because I think most weeks you might have a chance that CeeDee Lamb's going to pretty much outscore Odunze and Jameson Williams. But depends on how hard you've been hit with injuries too. So Eric, let me know, and I can answer this a little bit better if you tell me more about your team. Jurison, I ended up starting Oronde Gadsden, and he won me the game. Jurs, I love it. I actually just picked up Gadsden. I had him on a bunch of teams. I started him. I had him a lot more dynasty teams than I have him on redraft teams. Of course, he was like the number 1 waiver wire ad this week. The big thing with Gadsden, and I was actually going to pull this up to show you like the PFF snap counts for him. this is the biggest thing that I found really interesting. So not only do we have a healthy Ladd, a healthy Quentin Johnston, and a healthy Keenan Allen. So Quentin Johnston and Ladd both played 68 and 67 snaps. Keenan Allen played 49. If we go down to Gadsden, he played 60 snaps. The other tight ends in the room, Tucker Fisk played 13. Will Dissly played 3. Like, it was all a ronde. And he had 48 routes run. So he had actually 2 more routes than Keenan Allen because he was always on the field, whether it was in 12 personnel or whether it was in 3 wide receiver sets. And he had 9 targets. Now, of course, he out-targeted Quentin Johnston. Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen had more targets than him. It was an absolutely crazy, like, pass-happy matchup. But even if, Justin Herbert isn't going to throw as much this next game, especially on Thursday night, I still think Gadsden should be in line for somewhere between 6 to 7 targets. Maybe he doesn't get 9, but we saw how explosive he could be. I mean, this guy is like a glorified wide receiver at the tight end position. I saw a tweet. I actually should pull this up right now. It was by Dynasty IM, and this is what's really. And when we start talking about, I was listening to Aaron Glenn's interview. So here, let me find this Dynasty IM tweet so I can like highlight this a little bit more on our good boy. So it says day 3 rookie tight ends to post an 8+ point per game and 1.25 yards per route run as a rookie. This would be George Kittle, Aaron Hernandez, and then Aronde. So it's super rare company. I think a lot of people are assuming that, hey, there's a chance that there's a fall off, that, he's not going to have another good game. I think that's probably true. I think maybe that was the best game we're going to see all season. But can this guy give you 10 to 15 solid fantasy points each and every week? And if you get that off your waiver wire and throw that in your tight end spot, if it's on a bye where you throw that in your flex spot, I do think Aronde is somebody that you definitely want to have and start this week. So I'm rolling with him. Hopefully you are. And Jer's glad that's working for you. Jimmy said, I have Penix. Who should I pick up? Wentz, Dalton, Rattler, or Mariota? Oh my gosh, dude. I have Penix in a lot of spots. I have a guillotine league where I had Jaden Daniels and my backup was Penix. And I'm like, yikes, that is not what I wanted to see this week. I think you got to go Carson Wentz versus the Chargers. Big reason I just think the game script is going to call for them to pass a ton. I understand it wasn't like a great day for Justin Jefferson last week compared to what we saw out of Jordan Addison. But Carson Wentz is just going to have the weapons. And I think to keep up with the Chargers, they're going to have to throw the ball a ton. Mariota, of course, has like the legs, but I do think going up against a pretty stout Kansas City defense. Spencer Rattler versus Tampa Bay, another thing, going up against that front 7. I understand they're probably going to have to throw the ball deep a ton. So if he hits on that, it probably pushes Spencer Rattler over Carson Wentz. But I think the safest play with the most upside in a pass-happy, good game script is going to be Carson Wentz there, Jimmy. So I would go with Carson Wentz. Jer said, my starting wide receivers this week are Addison and Smitty, send Prairie Jaw. I mean, honestly, that's better than a lot of people. Smitty, let me just say this. I traded away Smitty in a league 2 weeks ago because I was so sick and tired of the 20 points and then the 5 points, and then he does what he does last week. And I think the Eagles are just going to continue to throw. And I'm like, I literally should have just waited. I think another thing that I've learned this season with myself, I have been impatient in some situations. Sometimes you just need to be patient. And if the talent's there and we know and we've seen that talent there, then we have to keep going with it. And just so everyone's aware, if you're on X, if you're on YouTube, I have these as they come in. So I'm just going down the line with how these questions come in. We got the Smitty said 2 QB Superflex League. My quarterbacks are Daniels and Purdy, and I have their backups. Would you trade Daniels, Brees, Nico for Lawrence, Olave, Saquon? I'm tired of these injuries and have 2 injured QBs. So in a 2 QB league, I mean, it's hard because how long is Daniels going to be out? I understand he keeps getting injured, but the issue that I have with this trade is I just think you're losing from Daniels to Lawrence, Nico to Olave. If it's like wide receiver, you're taking a step back. It's closer than it was. And then Brees to Saquon, you're getting the slight upgrade with Saquon, but we haven't had the consistency and fantasy points. For me, especially in a super flex league, the difference for me is going to be Daniels and Brees and Nico if they're all healthy. Now, I understand me telling you to hold guys. I don't know what your record is. So that would also play into effect. If I'm at a spot where I feel like I can, miss Daniels for a week or two and I can still sneak into the playoffs, then 100%, bro. Then we'll roll out Mariota. I mean, it's going to be down from what Jaden Daniels would do, but if you have Mariota, then you have to feel decent about it. Just kind of depends on where we're sitting. Ideally, I want to hold the left side. But if we're like super desperate, where we know this is our, like, we have to win this week, otherwise we're not making the playoffs, then I understand making the Lawrence Olave add to your team. Trick said, my wide receiver room is in the mud. Yeah, starting Alec didn't help me at all. Dude, he's been off. And the other rookie now, DK, is taking over. So that's the part that's real interesting about that Tennessee Titans wide receiver room. Jur said, PPR start 2 flexes, Chuba, Marks, Mason, Io Manor, or Henry this week. Yeah, so I think honestly, Jers, I'm probably not leaning on any of the, I'm not leaning on the wide receiver, Iron Manor for sure. Henry would be the first one that I would go with. I have him as a top 8 running back this week. And then I believe we're probably going to go and double checking where I have Mason relative. Yeah, you got to go Mason because the volume's going to be there. Now, the worry is that it becomes a pass-happy game as much as I talked about that game script. But I just think the breakdown between I mean, maybe you could go Rico versus Buffalo. The splits that are my worry, though, Jers, this is actually my true worry. I think Rico earned the 50-50 split that we saw last week with Chuba Hubbard. The part that I'm more concerned about is another week of Chuba Hubbard being healthy. Are they just going to give it back to Chuba Hubbard? Because they clearly gave him, Chuba Hubbard had he not only has the contract extension, he was the starter to begin the season. Now, as much as Rico Dotto popped off, I think they decided, hey, this has to be like more of like a Detroit Lions situation. But I just think we're not having to worry about that with Jordan Mason. Now, we do have to monitor this week Aaron Jones potentially returning, which could cut into Jordan Mason's overall workload, especially if it's not a pass-happy attack. So I think it's between Jordan Mason and Rico for that. Or I guess you don't have Rico. I'm over here being dumb. I just prefer Rico over Chuba this week. So I go with Mason and I go with Henry. Pretty easy for me, Jers. Don't know why I got off on that Rico tangent. Frizz said, Caleb, whoa, how's it going? Dude, doing good, Frizz. Good to see you here, man. Thanks for hanging out. You said start Woody, Bill, or Kyle Manungai. Okay, so if we're diving into this, I think you have to go with good old Bill. Do you think it's Bill going up against Kansas City? I understand we saw the efficiency drop off without Jane Daniels, but he should. And we've also started to see his overall snap share and percentage of carries go down over the last few weeks. He's still a top 23 running back for me. If you look at Woody Marks right now, he's sliding in as my overall RB26. He's sliding in as John Paulson's overall RB27. And so I want to lean into the Bill Mafia here, Frizz. I think that's the way that you want to go. And then you said trade London, Dart, and Bill for Chase Brown, Javonte, and Jordan Addison. Okay, I'm assuming you don't need Dart. Like, I'm assuming that you have a stud, Frizz. And so that's why you are looking at this. I just think you want to hold Drake London. I understand the splits that we just saw this last week with Darnell Mooney. They were not ideal. Not ideal. I mean, everyone knows that if you have no Darnell Mooney, they somehow target Drake London like he's the second coming of Mike Evans in the prime. And then somehow if Darnell Mooney's there, they forget that he even exists, which makes 0 sense. But Javonte being, it's pretty much like, who do you want, Javonte or London? That's probably pretty even across the way. Man, I do think Chase Brown's just going to continue to kind of rise back up rankings over these next few weeks. He's probably like a high-end RB2. So you got Javonte like a middling, low-end RB1, Chase Brown, high-end RB2, and then Jordan Addison, who has been pretty good as a wide receiver. I think he's got to be at least a top 24, if not a top 22 wide receiver rest of the season. So Frizz, I think initially I wanted Drake London because I do think Drake London is like the best player in this deal. But assuming you don't need Dart and assuming you need some running back help, I think probably the Chase Brown Javonte side helps you out way more. The upside is if Drake London puts up 20 points consistently, you're going to feel like you lost this trade. And he gave up the best player, but I think the package side is definitely a little bit stronger there, Frizz. So let me know what you think of that. Kill Kenny said, thanks, bro. All the love to you, the newborn, and the Mrs. Killa. Appreciate you, bro. Thanks for tuning in. Anytime, dude. Anytime I can answer your question, you let me know. Trick said Alec had to go. Alec Pierce, Tez Johnson, Batman, or Calvin Austin. Oh man, dude. John Paulson loves himself some Alec Pierce, and I think I'm also on that same wavelength. But Tez Johnson with the news. Let me just double check. He updated his rankings today. I updated mine as well. I love some Tez Johnson. I think it's a good matchup versus New Orleans. He can clearly be the 2, but I mean, there's just something about Alec Pierce right now with the way they're using him. They're not just like, we all think of Alec Pierce being this like downfield threat, but they've started using him on crossers a bunch, and it's a thing of beauty. And so I think I personally, Tricks, I go Alec Pierce here. That's who I'd want to go out of these options. Frizz said hot take. You know what though? I've saw that on X today. I think a lot of people said, hey, Gadsden's going to be a trap. I think it could be a trap, 100%. But I also would argue that, yes, do I think Justin Herbert's going to throw the ball 60 plus times on Thursday Night Football? No, but I think this offensive line is so bad, and we can't really trust Vidal. And Haskins is going to be out. I mean, what, would we be surprised if they throw 45, 46 times? And what if he's targeting, let's say, Keenan Allen gets 14 targets, Ladd gets 14 targets, that's 28. If he's throwing 40 something times, like let's say Quentin Johnston gets 8, 9 targets, that still leaves, 15, 16 targets up, the math wrong, like 12, 14 targets up in air for everybody else. And I mean, you could easily, if Gadsden's going to have the snapshot that he had, like we easily could be seeing him have another 6, 8 target game, which that's all he's going to need to put up a solid, if you're in PPR, a solid double-digit fantasy football score. Now, I think when you say a trap, yes, I'm not expecting him to put up 30 fantasy points, but I definitely could be wrong. Definitely could eat my words. I chose my options this week in one league in the flex. It was Gadsden, it was Tez Johnson, and it was Jawan Jennings. And I put my money, my mouth on Gadsden. That's a crazy statement that I just made, but that's where it's at. Juan, appreciate you being here. You said, who for wide receiver 1, 2, and 3, tight end and flex spot? Wide receivers are Quentin Johnston, Debo Samuel, Booty, Addison, Tez Johnson, Krosky, Trevon Henderson, or Kyle Malungai. Tight ends, Ertz and Kittle. Got Josh Jacobs. Yes, it's a crazy week on bye, Juan. I'm hoping you're in a better spot than me. I have a ton of people on bye. Like I have half of one of my teams on bye, but I absolutely need the win. So let me try to help you out here, bro. So I honestly, wide receiver 1, we're going to go with Quentin Johnston. Wide receiver 2, we're going to go with Jordan Addison. Debo Samuel, I didn't see. I'm assuming he's not playing this week. I didn't get an update on that today before I actually came on stream. So does anyone have an update on Samuel? A lot of people are actually they're saying there's some people on. They're saying that they expect to practice. So they're expecting to practice. He's probably going to play. So Juan, honestly, Quentin Johnston, Debo Samuel, Jordan Addison would be the 3 that I would go with. And then your tight end, I would go with Kittle. And then your flex spot, it's really Krosky versus Tez Johnson. And I would go with Krosky. So Quentin Johnston, Debo Samuel, Jordan Addison, Krosky, and Kittle would be the way that I'd go. And then Juan, let's say, for instance, Debo's going to be out, and so you need somebody else like the flex in. I would lean Tez Johnson over Kayshon Boutte. So Tez would be my replacement if something were to happen to Debo. Appreciate you, Juan. We got Citizen up here in the building. He said, hey, would you start one? Judkin, Worthy, or Vidal? Por favor. I appreciate you, Citizen, for being here. I would be going with Judkins, personally. Understand there's a little bit of worry with him going up against this New Orleans, going up against the New England Patriots front. But I also think the Kamani Vidal, you're a little bit worried about his overall workload, just knowing that how pass happy this Chargers team has been. So personally, I would go with Judkins and just hope that he finds the end zone. Because if he finds the end zone, even if he runs 60 for a tutty, you're going to feel pretty good about that day. Appreciate you, Citizen. We got next on the list, we got Tricks. He says, Kelsey, Theo, Jawan, or Ingram. Tricks, got to go Kelsey. Even though he did score single digits this last week in full PPR, he has been, like, I think the 2 weeks previous that he was double digits. So I understand a little bit of worry. Rashee Rice first game, maybe not the most electric start for Travis Kelsey, but everything's going to get itself worked out. But Rashee Rice, if people are going to be locking in on him more, it's going to just continue to open things up for Travis Kelsey, even with those old man legs. Cash money AP. JD5 hurt, so got to go Flacco or Dart. Go Dart. Cash money for sure. And you said I have T. Higgins, so I was thinking about the stack, but Dart has been so good to hard to pass up. I think JD5 will only miss 1 game or 2 games, to be honest. Yes, Same as I both. Like I said, I think for people that are worried and trying to trade away JD5, I think you can probably find decent enough quarterback production to hopefully get you at least one win over the next 2 weeks while he's out. But Cash, I would go with, you got to go with Dart. I mean, the Konami code quarterback upside. I understand there's a stack. So, if he throws a touchdown to T. Higgins, Joe Flacco, I don't know if it's a 4 or a 6-point passing touchdown, but that would be kind of my thought process, is that a 6-point touchdown, cool, that's 12 points if Joe Flacco throws it to T. Higgins, but Jackson Dart is going to just outperform Joe Flacco. I understand people love the thought of a stack because it helps. I think stacking is more effective in either best ball or like DraftKings, like the Millie Maker, than it really, really benefits fantasy football. Because if you just have a better quarterback on another team, they're going to outscore that stack quarterback. Hope that helps, Cash. Jers said Hunter Henry. I mean, not King Henry. Oh my gosh, Jers. I was about to say, I was like, bro, why are we debating Henry? So if I got to start 2 here, okay, we are in the mud. So I'd still go Mason, Jers, and then I would go, it's between Marks and Chuba. Oh gosh. I see where you're struggling. I just think go Marks. This offensive line, they're going to have to check the ball down, and they're going to have to throw the ball in this game. So I would go with Woody Marks, hoping he gets the check down work. And I just don't think Chuba's going to get enough volume for that. So I would go Jordan Mason and Woody Marks. Cassidy, also, would you flex Mason even if Jones plays, or Terry if he goes? Yeah, that's going to be interesting. So this is what I'm going to say with Marcus Mariota is also the quarterback. And I understand Terry's performed with Marcus when he's played before, but I personally would still go with Mason. I just think there's going to be a touchdown waiting to happen there. And I think I'm a little bit worried about Marcus Mariota throwing downfield. Now, I'm not as worried about like Debo because they do all those gimmicky touches for him. And so I'd feel good enough there. But personally, I would go Jordan Mason there, cash money. Trick said Aaron Jones' stock is back. He is so back. And Trix, I know nobody's happier than you. VR says I got little for tight end, but debating on playing Schultz instead of Woody Marks and dropping Spears for Schultz. Okay, let's pull up the beautiful flex rankings here. Let me give you an exact answer on where Woody. So I'm going to defer to the absolute rankings god himself, John Paulson, when we talk about flex rankings. And John has Dalton Schultz ahead. So, you know what, VR? I'll tell you this. Do it. Full send. If you have Woody Marks and he's going to be somebody that could potentially be a bench play for you, then I would 100% go with Schultz there. And then you said Kittle. VR, what do you mean by Kittle? Are we talking, did I answer something wrong? Or did you said, should I drop? Oh, you got Kittle as your main tight end? Yeah, cool. Then I mean, you're probably playing Kittle and then put Dalton Schultz in your flex. Chris said, how about trade Bill, J-Mo, and Dart for Chase Brown and Jordan? I said, I like that one a lot more. Yeah, I got Bill, Brees, Woody, Kyle, and Spears, and my RBs, and I'm 3 and 4. Yeah, I like that a lot more, like I said, because I think Chase Brown is probably Bill and Dart equals Chase Brown. I understand Dart's performing like a top 10 QB right now, but I think most people rest of the season have him as like a top 14, 15 QB. And then Jordan Addison is way better than J-Mo. So I like that deal for you, Frizz, if you can get it done. And we got C coming in here. And he says, standard. Pitts or Gadsden this week have Waller, but debating on whether to drop as I got one IR spot and Garrett Wilson's in it. Yeah, dude, at this point, this is how I view Darren Waller, is if they've already sent him, like we said, if he's already getting injured, and I mean, there's no rush for him to come back. That Dolphins team is so bad. So there's a chance that he just retires again. We saw a flash in the pan, then he's gone. But honestly, I would go with Gadsden this week. I understand Kyle Pitts could be intriguing, especially if Michael Penix isn't playing. Then I don't even know who the backup is for Atlanta right now. Why am I blanking on that? I feel like I should know. Oh, it's Kirk Cousins, which could benefit Kyle Pitts for sure. And maybe Kirk Cousins actually plays better than Michael Penix, low key. That actually, Michael Penix needs to figure out how to get back there, because if Kirk Cousins looks good, we could have a little bit of a quarterback controversy on our hands. But I would still go Gadsden. I'd still go Gadsden this week. And that's where I would go. But let me double check with the rankings of John Paulson for you. Yeah, he would go Gadsden too. He's got him 2 spots ahead of Kyle Pitts. Jur said, PPR rest of the season, who would you rather have, Herbert or Love? Got to go Herbert. The volume's incredible. The passing volume is incredible. Now, yes, Hampton might come back, week 12, week 13, and you might put you in such a way that you're like, man, do I really want to continue to roll out Justin Herbert? But the thing is that there's just a little bit more rushing upside when it comes to Herbert over Love. And then you add in the fact that I just like the weapons better for Justin Herbert, and I think he's got a little bit easier rest of season schedule, Jers. So I would go with Justin Herbert. We got Smokey coming in next. He said full PPR, McConkey or Pickens this week. Oh, gosh. Do I have to decide between my 2 loves? The fact that you have to decide, and you can leave a top 20 wide receiver, Smokey, on your bench, because both these guys are top 20 in a week full of buys is absolutely ridiculous, Smokey. You're easily getting the win this week. So it really doesn't matter. But ideally, I will say it's going to be Pickens is going to be the way that I want to go in this matchup versus Denver. Now, as much as we talk about Patrick Surtain, I think even CeeDee Lamb, as much as he's not this week like a top 3 wide receiver, we got, he's bumped down into like the top 6, 7, 8 range for a lot of people. George Pickens isn't going to be getting that shadow coverage. Now, I'm assuming that this defense, it's super talented, so at any week it could absolutely stifle an offense. But we just saw Jackson Dart erupt in the second half last week, and so that's something that I am taking into consideration when Dallas Cowboys have been a top 3, 4 offense all this season. And so I do think I would go with Pickens in this matchup over McConkey, even though McConkey has started to really get the targets back. Like we said, maybe in this game they don't throw the ball as much. And when you're competing with targets with Gadsden, QJ, and Keenan Allen, I'll go with Pickens. Even though Pickens competing with CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson is pretty much the same thing. We got D. Sadowski coming in. Hopefully I said your last name right, D. Appreciate you being here. You said Algier or Marks as RB2. I think they're lightening Bijan's carries this week. Well, I think they probably want to, but if they are rolling out Kirk Cousins out there, this is my thing this week when we're talking these running backs. So first off, the matchup is beautiful for Atlanta for running backs when we're talking about them going up against Miami. So I definitely think Tyler Algier, depending on the format's great. Now, I lean Woody Marks in a full PPR. You didn't say D. I don't know if this is full PPR or not. But in a full PPR format, I do lean Woody Marks just because I think he's going to get the receiving work out of the backfield, especially with no Nico Collins if he's not going this week. The part that I do want to add about Tyler Algier, where this could 100% mess up this projection, is if the Falcons just go out and absolutely lay the lumber, and we're talking about them being up, 3-4 touchdowns in, the back end of the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, they just give Tyler Algier like 10 carries that we weren't expecting in our projections. And then all of a sudden, Tyler Algier going up against the very poorest Miami, defense in the fourth quarter. We're talking about him sliding up and being a top 25 running back this week. I think that is in the range of outcomes when it comes to this Miami team. He'll probably get 8 rushing attempts. That's kind of where I'm projecting him. I just think there's going to be enough receptions for Woody Marks to make that floor up and to have Woody Marks as the better floor play, because both of them, you can make the argument that where the ceilings lie. I just personally would go with Woody Marks there, D. So appreciate you for tuning in. Jur said, someone was forced to drop Matthew Golden, so I snagged him or Darius Slayton off waivers. You go with Matthew Golden. Go with Matthew Golden for sure. Not only are we talking about these rookies as they're going through the season, they're just continuing to get more and more useful. But I definitely would be leaning Matthew Golden here over Darius Slayton. Smokey, appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. PJ Gear. PJ, you look absolutely, look at you. Which one are you? Because I love this picture. You guys are like matching. Like what are we doing? Is this like pickleball? Is this like ultimate frisbee? Is this like, I need to know, PJ, but I appreciate you tuning into the stream. Appreciate you being here. Like I said, guys, we are on the way over here on the 4for4 Fantasy Football YouTube channel. We're on the way to 3,000 subscribers. We're at 2,100 right now. So we got 900 more to go, but we've made a ton of progress. We started this brand new channel in early October. So we've gained about 1,200 subscribers a month is kind of where we've been so far. So appreciate all the love. But PJ, you said I have Jefferson and the kid who wants to trade. I love that you had to clarify that I was a kid with me. Has Sutton, Wandell, Stevenson, Bucky, Irvin, Jordanson. Who should I target and ask for him? I want Sutton, then RB at least. And PJ, I'll be honest. I mean, if you got Sutton, like this is the only way I'm trading him away. You would need like Sutton and Bucky Irving, but I don't even know what your team looks like because Justin Jefferson to me is still a top 7 wide receiver rest of the season. Cortland Sutton slides in as top 15. So to go from 15 to 7, I'm going to need a substantial piece, and I think it's going to have to be Bucky Irving. Like I'm not feeling good if you're like, oh, I'll give me, if someone trades Sutton and Jordan Addison for Justin Jefferson, I don't like that. Like Sutton and Stevenson for Justin Jefferson, that doesn't look good. So PJ, I would need Sutton and Bucky Irving, and then if I can send like the lowest end thing on my bench back, like sure. But otherwise, I am just holding JJ. But PJ, depends on what your depends on what is. And you know what, PJ, you said this, and I realize this now because I'm squinting that you said is Drake May and Jason. The reason I didn't recognize who it was because it's so small on my screen is like I didn't realize how much taller the guy on the right was from. So I like that you like 2 favorite athletes. PJ, I assume you live in Massachusetts. I think that's probably a smart assumption, but glad that you like your Boston teams. But yeah, I would demand PJ. I demand Bucky Irvin and Sutton. And then if you need to send a small piece, you send a small piece. Jur said, I'm ready to deal Chuba and BTJ in a trade, and I know I can't expect much, but who do you think I can target in a trade to help my wide receiver room? I need a true wide receiver one, so I'm willing to add to it. Yeah, I mean, honestly, Jurs, the BTJ thing, it's gotten bad. Like, I'm just calling it what it is. A few weeks ago, you probably would have talked about him. He's my wide receiver 18 rest of the season. He's my wide receiver, 24. I mean, I think right now you're talking about him being in like the low 20s. And then Chuba Hubbard rest of the season, like we said, there's the uncertainty right now of what's happening with Rico Dowdle. So both of these guys are at their super, super low. So, I mean, even if you traded Chuba Hubbard and like Brian Thomas Jr., like what are you getting up into? Like that might get you AJ Brown. That might get you Ted McMillan, but that's not like Jers. That's not going to get you Romo Dunze, Nico Collins, Rashee Rice level. So give me the rest of your team, dude, and I can help you. The issue is we might to get to one of those guys, you might fleece off so much of your depth that all of a sudden you're going to be regretting that decision in a few weeks, especially with all these buys. And then Steve Wold said standard 10 team in 8th place, hold BTJ or drop for McMillan. Drop for McMillan. See, drop for McMillan, dude. Give me McMillan. Jer said also have 2 open spots, so should I snag slide? If you have an extra spot, then for sure, dude, for sure. PJ said Drake May also just kind of looks like a dude. That's the thing. Like he kind of looks like a like when I looked at it from like this angle, I was like, he kind of just looks like just a normal dude. But when you said Jason Tatum, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. But it doesn't make Jason Tatum doesn't look 6'8", PJ in this photo. Seawool said hold Waller or put up Pitts as backup. I would pick up Pitts at this point. See, and I think we're starting like Pitts has been okay. I understand the ceiling hasn't been there as Darren Waller, but like I said, the how long is Darren Waller going to be out, and is he even going to be coming back? Great questions. Brendan, appreciate you being here, dude. You said Gadsden or Pitts. I have Gadsden, and John Paulson has Gadsden ahead. John Paulson actually has him 2 spots ahead. And Brendan, John Paulson is an absolute ranking god, so definitely go with Gadsden. I understand it's a Thursday night game. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the stream. Brendan, main reason with Gadsden is even if they pass less, I know they passed like 60 times on Sunday. We even said like if they passed 45 times, there's going to be enough volume for both Ladd, Keenan, and Quinn Johnson to get theirs, and for Gadsden to get anywhere between 6 to 8 targets. If he gets 6 to 8 targets, even if it's less than the 10 targets that he got, he should still put up double-digit fantasy points in Week 8 fantasy football. Trick said Caleb Williams stock down. Yeah, I mean, I still have him as a top 10 QB rest of the season. So I just think you have Ben Johnson. You have a lot of exciting, Could we get some more Luther Burden touches over Zacchaeus? I would hope over these next 2 weeks that we can. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm viewing things. And then Brendan says full PPR, Debo, Brees, or Pittman. Like we said, we're kind of monitoring this Debo injury right now, Brendan, to see if he's actually gonna play this week. I believe I have Pittman. All right, yeah, you got to go Pittman here. Love the matchup, but Brees keeps. Yeah, dude, I love the matchup for Brees too, but we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Like, all that came out with the owner, Mr. Woody, saying Justin Fields can't throw the ball downfield. And then you just got a good matchup for Michael Pittman. Now, it's a good matchup for Michael Pittman. It's a good matchup for Alec Pierce. Of course, it's a good matchup for Jonathan Taylor. So is Pittman going to get the volume? That's kind of what we're each and every week with so many mouths to feed in this Colts offense, like how he really has to make the most of his opportunities. But I would lean with Michael Pittman there, Brendan. Frizz said, trade Ferg, Bill, Dart, and Booty for London and Javonte. Yes, give me the London and Javonte side 100% there, Frizz. And then, Brendan, I see your question. Let me know if that's rest of season. Jers said, Herbert, Achane, Judkins, Mark, Mason, Chuba, Addison, Smitty, BTJ. Okay, yeah. So if you did BTJ, like honestly, Jers, if you did BTJ, Gadsden, Mason, like if you did those three guys, so you could keep Smitty and Addison, like, and could you get up into, like that might get you up into Rashee Rice or Drake London, depending. And if you can't go that high, then I would just target George Pickens because I know he's the wide receiver 2, but he should be a back end wide receiver 1 for fantasy. If you had Pickens, Addison, and Smitty, and then Judkins and Chan, you feel pretty good about it. So I would go Gadsden, BTJ, Mason would be the way. And if he prefers Marks over Mason, then cool. Send away Marks. Trix said Luther cool, but DJ wasted. Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's too many mouths to feed in this offense. Trade away DJ Moore. Send him off. I don't know. Send him over to the Chiefs. Send him over to, I don't even know who really needs a wide receiver right now. Like Arizona as a number 2 could be interesting for DJ Moore. Yeah, I'm trying to think of another spot that would be juicy for him. I mean, Miami, just for fantasy football purposes, but not for actual points. Brendan said Caleb Williams or Bo Nix. Brendan, I don't know if you wanted this rest of season or if you wanted this week. Rest of season, definitely you're going to want Caleb. But this week, I would go with Bo Nix versus Denver. I do think we're talking about a potential shootout with the matchup over-under being super juicy. I think we're definitely talking about him at least being projected in the 20 fantasy point range at the baseline. Go with Bo Nix. PJ said he offered Bucky, White, and Addison for Jefferson and Swift, which I can't do. Yeah, dude, this is the thing. Like Bucky and Addison for Jefferson, you're probably like, nah, I'll hold. And then you have to add in Swift, PJ now. Someone's trying to fleece you. Jurist said, I'm crazy, but I was thinking adding either Judkins or Achane in a possible trade. That's how bad I mean, if you're going to do one, definitely don't do Achane. Because, I mean, he's the only part of that offense. I would do Judkins if I had to. Like, if you had to attach somebody, then do Judkins. It feels like your team, like, that's your strength. Like, you got 2 stud, top 18 running backs. And so that's my only worry for you. If you give up too much to get the wide receiver 1, but then you don't have the depth around it. Up in the gut, said Eating, Jefferson, Sutton, Rice, Abuka, sit 1. This week, I will be sitting Sutton. I understand it's a good matchup, but I will be sitting Sutton. Because, yeah, Abuka and Rice are like literally top 4 wide receivers. You then have it's between Jefferson then and our good old boy Sutton. And I would just go with Justin Jefferson. I understand it hasn't been the best, but him going up against the Chargers, like there's a good chance Carson Wentz is going to be a pass-happy matchup up at the guts. And so I would look to go with Jefferson. And guys, we started stream late. Honestly, we had some technical difficulties on my part, but I will be ringing the 5-minute bell here. So if you guys want your fantasy football questions answered, make sure you fire those away here in the chat. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Jer said, I was thinking Pittman, Sutton, people like that. Yeah, exactly. I think that's cool. You could probably even go maybe a little bit higher than that, like maybe even a Devontae Adams, George Pickens. But yeah, Pittman, Sutton in the same realm. Jer says, so you'd hold Chuba and include Mason or Marks. Preferably, I would do Marks would be the one. I just don't know if you're gonna have to add more pieces, and that was the part that I was like, I don't want to like absolutely rip apart Jer's depth on the team that he has. But honestly, between Chuba and Marks, it's pretty, like, I would prefer to hold Mason if I had to choose out of these three Jers. So I'm cool if you want to throw away Chuba. I'm cool if you want to throw away Marks here to get that wide receiver one. And then you said, I have another question as well. Bears did great for me last week, but either them, Packers, or Chiefs off waivers. I'd have to move one, obviously, if leaning Chiefs. Yeah, I mean, all of them are good. I think my defensive rankings, they came out before some of this new information came out. The Bears, it's a decent matchup versus Baltimore, but the thing that you have to consider is if Lamar Jackson's fully back, then you're not playing the Bears. And then the Packers versus Steelers, like, it's an okay game script. It's an okay matchup, but I just don't think there's going to be a ton of turnovers for the Packers. So therefore, I'd want the Chiefs. Like, I think up in the guts, like, if you have to win this week, then you need the Chiefs. If I had to drop one, then I would just drop the Bears. And I'd have the Chiefs and the Packers. And then PJ said, like for Sutton and Bucky for Jefferson and maybe a player of like Krosky or Pacheco. Yeah. I think Pacheco and Jefferson for Sutton and Bucky is a fine offer. I think it's just hard for me, PJ, because Justin Jefferson just hasn't been playing the best. But we know that when he's at his best, we're talking to a guy that could get you 17 to 22 fantasy points per game. And we're hoping that Bucky, when he comes back, is healthy. And so, like, you're almost like trading away, hoping that Bucky turns into that top 8, top 7 running back to make this trade work for you. I just feel like you can probably get a better package than this. Like, if you put in a group chat with your league mates, yo, I'm trying to trade Justin Jefferson, I think you can maybe up the offer just a little bit, PJ. Brendan said, my undefeated streak in my Superflex league is coming to an end. Lost Evans and Tariq, and my whole bench is on bye. Starting Brian Robinson, Pearsall, Alec Pierce, Kendrick Bourne, and 2 tight ends. Well, Brendan, that's better than one of my fantasy leagues this year. I went 0 RB. There is 0 running backs on the waiver wire. And I am stuck this week starting Brashard Smith and Trevion Henderson. Now, my wide receivers look absolutely electric. I got Drake May at quarterback. We're feeling good about ourselves. We got a good defense. I got Eddie Pinheiro at kicker. We're like locked and loaded. But the fact that I have to start Trevion Henderson, we're like praying that somehow Mike Vrabel just unlocks him. But I'm probably in for another 2-point day. And then Brashard Smith will give me 4 points. PJ said, like getting Bucky and Addison. I don't know. I'm getting with both the Bucks RBs. Yeah, honestly, it's not that good of a deal. I mean, if you're doing the deal, then for sure get both the Bucks RBs because you need to make sure that you have the RB1 there. But yeah, I'm not convinced that that's a good. I still lean like the Jefferson side just because I think there's more upside there. PJ. Brendan said, who are your top 5 rest of the season full PPR wide receivers trying to win and trade for a wide receiver 1? Yeah, I mean, goodness gracious, you got to go. I think it's a top 6. I think it's a top 6, and this changes pretty consistently. I think you got to go number 1 right now has to be JSN just because he's healthy. Wide receiver 2 has to be Puka Nacua, assuming he's coming back next week. Wide receiver 3 is CeeDee Lamb. Wide receiver 4 is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Wide receiver 5 is Emeka Egbuka. Wide receiver 6, and I was supposed to put out a rest of season rankings videos today, and that did not happen. My wide receiver 6, though, is Jamar Chase, and my wide receiver 7 is Justin Jefferson. So that's kind of my range of wide receivers. And shout out to anybody that drafted Emeka Egbuka. Like, Emeka Egbuka right now is an absolute dog. And I should have seen it coming from Ohio State, but the fact that he was outproduced by Jeremiah Smith and the fact that he was outproduced by Marvin Harrison Jr., I was just not fully convinced. When in doubt, sprinkle a couple fab dollars on top. Oh, exactly, Jers. Try to just sweeten the deal. Try to sweeten the deal. Brendan said, interested and you went 0 RB. I went hero RB in both leagues, CMC Kyron and CMC Hitchin. I've been cooked. See, that's the thing. Like, I think honestly, Brendan, this is me being full transparent. I think I just had this year. I had a bunch of different leagues where I had a bunch of different strategies. So like my leagues where I went heavy RB was great. I felt like the ultimate strategy for me was I felt like if I went like double hero or wide receiver, which is different than double hero RB, then I'd have a good shot. So like in a lot of leagues, I went with like CD Lamb, Drake London, CD Lamb, BTJ. And then in the third and fourth rounds, this is where I just missed the running backs. Like in a league, I have Kyron Williams and Breece Hall, which like fine, but it's not great. Another league, I got Breece Hall and Trayvon Henderson. Not great. And then, of course, BTJ doesn't perform. Drake London's been good, but like not great. So even too, like if I would have been in a spot where maybe Puka Nacua, I saw Puka Nacua, he got drafted like one pick ahead of me like twice. Like if I get a team with CeeDee Lamb and Puka Nacua, like that's lights out. And so sometimes it's just like the way the draft falls. But yes, definitely I made the mistake of made the mistake of not drafting enough good running backs this year. But it's also fine. I'll be fine. Who would you rather have, McConkey or Keenan? McConkey, cheers. Also thinking that's too many Chargers unless Gadsden goes in the trade, but Hunter Henry wears me, to be honest. Yeah, that's my thing. But I think Gadsden has more value right now. And I think they're about the same Jers rest of the season. So that's why I recommended Gadsden to you. Brendan said 12-2 across both leagues. Okay, Brendan, flex on us, brother. Trick said Puka saved me. He saved a lot of people right now. Brendan said, also glad I could finally catch a live. Life's been busy but good. Hope you're doing well too, bro. Hey, Brendan, appreciate you, bro. Thanks for tuning in. Know you've probably been in the gym just doing life. Good to finally have you back. Catching a live and hanging out, asking your start sit questions. And then you also said, also forget you're a Bengals fan. Y'all cooked us on Thursday. GG's, we'll spin the block in a few weeks. Yeah, dude, it was a good game. It was a good game. But I also like Joe Flacco. He played out of his mind. And do I think Joe Flacco is going to continue to be this? I mean, granted, he's throwing to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. We'll have to see. But yeah, definitely have to see in a few weeks. I mean, I don't believe we're making the playoffs. Like, I know a lot of Bengals fans are like, oh, Joe Flacco's going to save us. And it's like, I don't think so. But it has been good. Joe Flacco has saved my Jamar Chase shares. So thank you, Joe Flacco. Trick said, this is my last week of trading. Yeah, Tricks. I have a league where this is my last week trading too. You know, what's crazy is like CBS is one of those where like the average standard trade block is like super early. Bunny, appreciate tuning in. You said Jackson Dart or Joe Flacco. I almost said Joe Burrow. I wanted to say Joe Burrow. I wish it was Joe Burrow playing. You got to go with Jackson Dart. I understand the matchup is not so like this is me just speaking this out to you, Bunny. I understand the matchup versus the Eagles is worse for Jackson Dart versus Joe Flacco going up against the Jets. Now, we're assuming that the Bengals are going to score like 30. The thing is, Jackson Dart with this rushing upside gives him such a high floor. I mean, just if he rushes for 40 yards, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback just based on the way that they continue to pass in the volume there. So, Bunny, I would go with Jackson Dart over Joe Flacco this week. But it is close, but I do think that the rushing upside gives him the advantage. And then Brendan said, I definitely understand that strategy. I've always just preferred the consistency and touches and output of a true workhorse running back over. See, but this is the thing, like how many workhorse, I mean, this year, like honestly, Brendan, how many workhorse running backs are there this year? Like even if you said Devon Achane, like sure, he's like getting most of the touches, but we're probably talking about 7, 8 running backs, maybe at most. Now there's been a ton of injuries this year. So I would argue that yes, there's been a little bit more workhorse this year just because of necessity of the team. But maybe I'm just coping. Brendan, maybe I'm just coping. But I do think if you drafted running back last year, if you drafted running back this year, we are seeing a running back renaissance in redraft fantasy football where you always need a running back to win. But I think you've been able to like pick up these later round stashes. Like, Bucky Irving came out of nowhere. This year it was like Javonte Williams came out of nowhere. Travis Etienne started the season out of nowhere. That really hasn't blossomed into anything. You got JCM. We'll have to see if Woody Marks takes that next step. Jordan Mason. But I do hear you. I do hear you. I do think there's a ton of value in running backs, but they get injured about 2% more than wide receivers, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like if you just get that bona fide wide receiver one, like you feel good about it. But yeah, if you just drafted CMC, goodness gracious, you feel good about it too. Justin, I'm going to send a bunch of trade offers. Wish me luck, fellas. If I can pull off a trade to get an even better wide receiver, I feel confident making some noise in the league. Let's go, Jers. You got this. Good luck. And then Bunny said, already had Dart locked in. Appreciate, bro. Appreciate you, Bunny. Thanks for tuning in, dude. And then Jers said, appreciate you, Tricks. And then Brendan said, 3.5 max, to be honest. LOL. Yeah, I think that's the thing, though. If you got two of them, then you're absolutely ahead of your league mates. You get one of them, it's great. Like this year, if we're talking, yeah, I do think it's probably closer to 8, but like there's right now 3 running backs that are absolutely like in legendary running back status. And we're talking about a 24 plus point per game player. We're talking about JT, Jonathan Taylor, CMC, and Bijan. And like there's a chance that you drafted Bijan or CMC and you got Jonathan Taylor in the second round. Or there's even teams that I saw that drafted, Puka Nacua, Jonathan Taylor. Like if you had to start like that, or like a Jamar Chase, Jonathan Taylor, like you're feeling pretty good about that start. But if you did get 2 of them, you do feel really good about it. I mean, some others like, probably what Genty is getting a lot of that work, which is great. You got Josh Jacobs, you got Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook, Achane, Javonte. That's kind of the list. Now, I mean, like Saquon and Derrick Henry are also bell cows, but they're just being inefficient bell cows right now. You got the up and coming bell cows too of like Cam Scatterbo and Quinshon Judkins. I think that's also the truth though, Brendan, too, if we're talking about like my builds, is if you draft wide receiver early, you do have to hit on one of these running backs in the rounds 5 to 9 range. And I didn't in some of my leagues, and that's on me. I wasn't the biggest Cam Scatterbo believer. I did not draft enough Quinshon Judkins in the 9th and 10th round when I should have, because that would have paid off way better. Yeah, maybe. And then Jers, appreciate all the intel, Caleb, as always. Jers, thanks for tuning in. And then Av said, I got offered Achane and Rome for my CD and Krosky thoughts. This is probably, so like, honestly, Adam, this is leaning the side of Achane and Rome for me. Reason is CD and Achane are pretty close rest of the season, but then Rome is so much significantly higher than JCM rest of the season that I do go with that Achane and Rome side, assuming you're not absolutely loaded at running back already, and CD's probably like, it's like a big down tier at wide receiver for you. I prefer the Rome and Achane side though. Appreciate you, Adam. C said, how would you prefer rest of the season instead of BTJ, McMillan, Tucker, McCaffrey, Mims? No, dude, don't even mention any of these others. It's literally McMillan. As long as we're talking about Tet McMillan, it's 100% Tet McMillan. Tet McMillan, nobody else is close, dude. So go with Tet McMillan. Jers said JJ McCarthy will ruin Addison. Mark my words. We'll have to see. But him and Carson Wentz right now have an absolutely beautiful, beautiful relationship. So let's definitely, like I said, we'll have to see what's happening going forward. And then Adam said, my wide receivers are CD, Rice, and JSN. That's it. Hey, you got like 3 top 8 rest of the season wide receivers. You actually have 2 like top 4. And then you have Rice, who is continuing to progress. He could end up being a top 5 wide receiver rest of the season if he gets more snaps than he did last week and can continue to score 2 touchdowns and have an insane, be the wide receiver 1 for Patrick Mahomes. Adam said running backs are Genty, Scat, Kamara, Charles, Bucky. Oh, okay, Adam. This is what I'm going to say. So you really don't need, Achane would kind of slide in as a starter, but when Bucky comes back, between Genty, Scat, Kamara over these next few weeks, hold on to CeeDee Lamb here. If you're in a league that this is your depth that you have, keep the wide receiver 1. Yes, the trade, you would win it if you got the Rome and Achane side. But assuming that this is just a 2 flex league, like you're just not going to be able to play all those players. And therefore, I want the person that's going to be scoring the highest, give me the most wins above replacement, which is going to be CeeDee Lamb here. So I would go with that. And then Trick said, my running back room is Gibbs, Kyron, Marks, White, and Aaron Jones. Hey, that's a good room. That's a good room there, Tricks. But everybody, appreciate you guys for tuning in. If I didn't get to your question, you have a question, definitely leave that on one of the next videos. We're going to have a video, of course, the podcast Sneaky Starts with John Paulson and Addison coming out later this week. My stash video will be coming out later this week. So absolutely appreciate all you guys for tuning in. We are going to get out of here. I got to go drink some water. I got to go put the baby to bed. So appreciate all you. Like I said, Adam, appreciate you. You guys have a good night, and we're here to help anytime. If you haven't checked out the 444 website, definitely go check out the 444 website. Use code YouTube, get you 25% off. It has the start sit tool, has all of John Paulson's rankings and articles, as well as if you haven't already, you're already on X, come check out the 444 Fantasy Football YouTube channel on YouTube. We're on the way to 3,000 subscribers. So everybody, appreciate the effort. Appreciate all the comments. We're here to help everyone. Everyone have a good night. Trix, have a good night. Adam, have a good night. And Jers, have a good night. I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace out, guys. If I could click end stream too, that'd be great.